Here's a painting of a rose, enlarged quite a bit. It was a very dark, rich red rose, and I was trying to get a feel for the rose petals and the edges of the rose petals here. What I really like are the little leaves done with my my mop. You can only control how the edges of these lines are. You can lift your brush up, turn it as you're painting maybe, and lift it up, and it sort of does what it wants. You sort of guide it, but it decides where it's going to finally go. And I really like the way the light leaf turns over and you get the dark leaf crossing over it. And here's a painting I did outdoors on the beach last summer. There was a huge bush by the beach of these rose hips, and I picked out a small section, did a quick drawing, and started painting the rose hips, leaving the white highlights, putting slightly darker red and orange in a few places to form that round shape. But I ruined it with these leaves. I forgot that I was painting shapes and I was painting leaves here, and I was putting down these marks to follow the veins in the leaf. This one isn't quite so bad, but I just ruined it by trying to paint the leaf as opposed to painting the shape of the leaf. This one is better. It's just a light leaf shape with some cast shadows across it. Very incomplete, but it's very alive. And like I said, the viewer, if it's at all similar to a real thing, shape-wise and color-wise, the viewer is going to know, okay, that's a leaf. I don't have to go in and put in all these little veins to make the viewer believe it's a leaf. Here's another one I did, the same plant, and this is much better. The only place I almost got carried away with the veins is right in here, but these are just simple shapes, lighter and darker green shapes, and it gives the feeling of leaves. It doesn't matter that you can't see the outline of every single leaf. The viewer knows these are leaves, these are the rose hip shapes, the fruit shapes, and these are the little dried buds that come out of the end of the fruit. If you notice this light blue around the back, I put that down first. Once I did the drawing, I put that light blue around so that I wouldn't have to paint around it. If I tried to put that light blue in behind this, you get all this dark color around the edges. So I put a wash of this color in quickly, let it settle in some places, and then I could paint over it with these darker colors and not worry about the edges crossing over. Here's some watercolors I did. One of a Saltmarsh. This one's a little more involved, but you can see I didn't draw individual trees. I just painted some shapes, sort of, kind of generally follow the light and dark of that hill with trees on it. These are lighter farther in the distance. If you're painting a scene like this, you want to put in the sky first. Start in the farthest in the background and then move forward, because it's easier to paint in front of something than to paint around something. I might have had a little too much detail in here, but I wanted to get those sort of beach grass growing in here. And in the reflections, I just a light color with a slightly dark color over it. And if you look carefully in the color here, there's a little bit of bloom where I put this darker color down before that was completely dry, and I got a little bit of bloom there. But I kind of like this one because it's on the edge of being overworked, but it didn't quite make it there. And here's a painting I did of waves on the beach. And I really enjoy painting waves because they don't sit still for you. They're always moving, but they repeat over and over and over. So if you look at them long enough, you can sort of see how this sort of falls, depending on the day and what the tide is doing and what the bottom is shaped like. The waves will repeat themselves. And painting water with watercolor is kind of fun because it really lends itself towards a watery feeling because it's made with water. So again, painting the sky first, wetting the sky, painting a wash, leaving some white for where I wanted to leave the look of some clouds, and then going over with a few layers, but stopping myself before I got too carried away. I got a little dark here, but that was a really dark edge where the wave turned over. And just a couple more. Here's a painting I did from a photograph of my daughter when she was small. I didn't do any drawing at all. I just simply put down some colors, just sort of quickly mocked up the shape, some shadow, some color where the eyes are, a little bit of color under the chin, little bit darker color of the lips and a shadow of the nose, and then I left it. And I really like it because it really shows what watercolor can do and how alive watercolor can be. There's no detail at all. It doesn't need any detail. You automatically know it's a child's face. Whether you know it's recognizable as that particular person is another question, but I wasn't concerned about having it be recognizable as her. I just wanted to try this quick, delicate sort of feel of a child's face. When you're painting portraits or drawing them, the more lines you add, the older and older the face looks. So she was probably 2 or 3 years old in this photograph, and I wanted to keep her young looking. So I did it really quickly. I did about 5 or 6 of these at the time. This is the one I liked. The others I'm not going to show you. And this is a painting of a shoe form. More careful drawing, but I really like the color. Quickly put the color in. It's, you know, a old wooden shoe form from the 19th century. It has a metal edge here, and I might have gotten carried away with the cast shadow a little bit. It might be a little bit dark, but it has nice white open areas that I think allow it to breathe. A couple of the other paintings of the shoe form, I kind of overworked them and they got too dark, and I just didn't stop when I should have stopped. And the last thing I want to show you is an illustration I did with watercolor and ink. When you're using watercolor, there's several ways you can think about using it. One is to do a drawing and add some color to the drawing. So it's basically a drawing that's colored with some watercolor. You can do it as I've been showing you, to try and create a watercolor painting. And in that case, I feel that you really want to let the watercolor be watercolor and not try and make it look like an oil painting or an acrylic painting. In this case, it's an illustration. This was an illustrated border for an Aesop's fable. I was going to do a book of Aesop's fables, and I was going to illustrate the borders, and the text was going to go in the middle, and this was an Aesop's fable about the turtle and the eagle. So I did the drawings in pencil, put the watercolor in using photographs as reference, some pretty detailed paint in here, and detail paint in the turtle's neck and on the shell. And then once that dried, I went back with a fine pen in India ink and drew the outlines. But my intent was to make this as an illustration and not as a straight painting. So there are a number of things you can do. It's good to know what you want to end up with. But before you can really start being satisfied with what you want to end up with, you really need to get some of the right equipment. Don't spend a lot of money. Get some of the right equipment, and then practice. Try different things. Try putting color down, see what happens. When you leave white areas, when you try it loosely, this doesn't really suit your personality, you don't like that, you like something more exacting, then go for that. Watercolor is a mixture of patience and hurry up. You put watercolor down, you have to have patience and let it dry before you go back to it. So put some color down and work on another part while that's drying. You don't have to stop painting. And the hurry up is when you do put color down. If you quickly want to soften the edge, you have to do that immediately. If you want to pull some color off, you have to do that immediately. So be prepared to work very quickly, and then leave it alone while you're working on something else, and then work very quickly again and leave it alone while you're working on something else. All that takes practice, but it's a lot of fun and it's a great challenge. And when you do start to produce things, even parts of paintings that you really, wow, look at that, that really came out not what I expected, but I really like it. When that starts to happen, then you really start to enjoy it, and you can get some of the real value that watercolor painting has to offer you.